Welcome to Straight Talk and Retirement, your no-hype source for financial advice and making informed choices about your retirement plan. Get on the phone to talk today at 314-931-5877 or text your question to 84126.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Now, here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, hello, St. Louis, and welcome to Straight Talk on Retirement, your live and local St. Louis's favorite financial call-in show. I'm Aaron Lapidus, president of JBL Financial Services, financial planner and wealth manager. I'm joined this week and every single week by my dad, Jeff Lapidus, wealth manager and the retirement coach, and my husband, Robert Markham, our life insurance and fixed annuity sales specialist. Good morning.
Good morning, babe.
Good morning.
Good morning. We help our clients make smart choices about their money. The way we do that is by designing a game plan, a written step-by-step strategy, a real game plan with several goals in mind.
First is to preserve, protect, and prudently grow the assets our clients have taken their entire lifetimes to accumulate.
Second is to provide an income stream they can rely on so they can do all the things they want in retirement.
And third is cost-effectively addressing their health care needs, like helping individuals enroll in Medicare and choosing the right plan to couple with their Medicare coverage.
And then when they're done enjoying their assets during their lifetime, we show them how to pass them on to the people they love, whether it's their spouses or children, grandchildren, churches, or charities, whoever it might be, without Uncle Sam or the tax courts taking a big bite out of their money. And as their wealth managers, Aaron, Rob, and I watch their money every single day to make sure they're staying on track. And that's why they call us the retirement coaches. Gang, good morning again.
Good morning. We have some exciting news this morning.
I'm ready. I've been waiting.
I don't know if you've noticed, but we have why are you laughing? We've revamped the website. Got a whole new look. New logo, new pictures, new stuff.
Was today the first day it went live?
Actually went live a couple of days ago, but it's the first time we've had the chance to discuss it. All the same good stuff that you have always had on there. So if you're a client and you need access to your account view, still easily accessible. You want to take a look at our old show or listen to our old shows, take a look at some of our videos that we've created over the years, although that content's still on there. We've got a facelift, so to speak, a new logo that we're rolling out, so that'll be across everything relatively soon.
So did they use my Weight Watcher friendly pictures?
They did.
Very nice. I like that.
Yeah,
as
when
long
we
as
had
it's,
the nice
shoulders up is cool.
Right, when we had people come in, got a little, primping done for us, the hair and makeup, took some nice photos. Looks real professional.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it's nice. So that is one of the ways that you can keep in contact with us throughout the week. So if you want to head over to our new website, jblfinancial.com, you can still click the upper right-hand corner on the Contact Us button and request a coaching session, a Medicare or financial coaching session. Or both. When you log on to the site, there's a big pop-up box in the center of the screen for right now that will allow you to sign up for our monthly newsletter. We call it the Coach's Corner. Rob's going to talk about our May newsletter. Now, we're still doing some updates to the website, so the archive newsletters aren't appearing today. However, in the next few days, they should be all back to where they once were. So if you were looking to spend Mother's Day weekend perusing the newsletters, maybe we push it off to Memorial Day weekend and they'll all be back.
They'll migrate on over, I'm sure.
Yes, they will soon enough. And so, Rob, tell us a little bit about what's in our May newsletter.
Got some great articles in the May 2025 newsletter you're certainly going to want to peruse. The first one being Prime Workforce Stays Strong. The labor market has remained strong and even surpassed the pre-pandemic levels and has remained above it. And that could bode well for the overall economy. And just as an aside to that, I saw we cut a nice trade deal with the UK. And hopefully, I think this weekend we're meeting with the Chinese delegation, and that hopefully will go well. And hopefully over the next couple of weeks, they'll be announcing more trade deals.
Right. I think they're meeting to talk about talking. It's a preliminary talk. I also, in the same vein, in terms of the workforce, we saw an interesting jobs report a couple of weeks ago that indicated that wages are still rising, and they're rising more rapidly rather than inflation. So that is also a good sign for our wage base.
I think I saw the Commerce Secretary say that we were in negotiations with over 70 countries going on concurrently.
He's got 120 deals to do.
It's a lot of deals.
Lots of deals.
Hopefully over the next couple of weeks we'll see those deals come to fruition.
Absolutely.
As well as tax reform, which I know is now in conference committee right now.
That's right.
That's a great point.
And the House.
On deck for more changes.
And our next article, life insurance in retirement. Most of us think of life insurance as protection against financial loss should we die prematurely. But what about when you reach retirement? Do you still need it? The answer is you very well may. Beyond covering your final expenses, life insurance can serve a number of different roles in retirement: paying off debts, credit card, mortgage, or replacing the income lost by Social Security when your spouse dies. But another great tool that it can be used for is making sure that your assets pass on intact. The article doesn't go into it, but I will now. The Secure 2.0 Act has been one of the most fundamental changes to the tax code in a generation. And now they're forcing beneficiaries to liquidate retirement accounts in 10 years, which could leave your heirs with a quite sizable tax bill. What is the most efficient way to pay Uncle Sam? The answer? Life insurance. It's certainly a great option because we know that Uncle Sam is going to get their cut of the pie. It's just a matter of where we get that pie from.
Yes, right, Rob. Life insurance is pennies on the dollar. You're purchasing money at a discount, so that can be an option. I know that for many of our clients, what we're talking about doing is repurposing contracts they've had in the past, retaining them, and in many cases also either using life insurance to create a legacy or to pay those taxes when they come due for the kids.
It's really it's a great way of putting your thumb on the scale for future generations. And we all know America is about opportunity. And to have opportunities, you need capital to do that. And, you've said it many times, what would life have been like had you inherited a large sum of money in your 30s or even before that? What would life have been had you been able to pay off your college debts or perhaps pay off your house that much sooner? What trajectory or become a business owner that much earlier? What kind of trajectory would that have put you on later in life? And these are certainly these are questions that we want clients and really everyone to think about when it comes to life insurance, because it can serve a multitude of different purposes as we go through life and as we retire.
Certainly one of the most unique financial planning tools that we have available in our arsenal, period.
And our next article, versatile 529 plans, old plans with a new wrinkle. 529 plans can be instrumental in building a college funds. Funds contributed accumulate tax-deferred, and earnings are tax-free if the funds are used to pay for qualified educational expenses. And some of those expenses would be housing and food while you're away at college, tuition, fees, books, computers, even apprenticeship programs and K-12 programs, tuition fees up to $10,000. But there is a new wrinkle. Now, 529 account owners can roll up to $35,000 from a 529 plan to a Roth IRA for the same beneficiary. Now, there are a couple of caveats. Any rollovers are subject to the contribution limits, which are currently at $7,000. So, in theory, if you had $35,000 to roll over, you couldn't do it all at once. You would have to do it in $7,000 increments. Also, the account has to be open for at least 15 years to be able to roll over any funds, and any funds contributed in the last 5 years cannot be rolled over. Those have to be they have to be outside the 5-year window. So that's an interesting wrinkle on an old plan.
Absolutely.
And our last article, are extended warranties worth it? When you purchase a vehicle, major appliance, computer, or other big-ticket item, chances are you're going to be asked to purchase an extended warranty or a service contract. We know it makes a lot of sense for the manufacturer, but does it make sense for you? There's some important questions that I just jotted down that you just want to run through. Is your purchase already covered by a manufacturer's warranty? Many items, certainly big-ticket ones, usually come with a 1-year manufacturer's warranty, so it's important to consider. Another is the product or service you're buying typically reliable? Another important factor to, build into your equation. And third, is the service contract or the extended warranty going to cost more than replacing the item outright? Or is it almost a 1-for-1? Because if it is, it may just be worth it to, if it gives out on
roll the dice.
Exactly. I mean, why pay for it? Because you're essentially paying for it twice. Why not just cross that bridge when you come to it?
Great point.
And that is your May 2025 newsletter in a nutshell. And I'll be constructing the next one over the next couple of weeks, and that one will be hot on the presses come June. And we're just speed running the months of this year. I mean, June will be halfway done.
Fantastic.
And as a reminder, all of our clients are folks like you. They're our listeners. They're 55 and older. They would like to retire, or they're already retired. And as Aaron mentioned, our goal is to create a game plan for them so they can have a fun and financially successful retirement. And also, we are live and local. We'd love to hear from you. Our phone lines are open, 314-931-5877 or 84126 on the Let's Heat It Up KTRS text line.
Let's do it.
Let's heat up the text line?
Exactly.
Do we have to send the text in, or will I have to wait for somebody else to do it?
We'll have Mom do it.
Okay. No ringers this morning. All right. So while we're waiting for your calls, again at 314-931-5877 or your texts at 84126 on the KTRS text line. We do have one subject we want to begin with today. And I've kind of titled this one, Building a Bridge to Retirement. We had visited with some folks, Jim and Sandy. They both were 64 years old, and they plan to retire in April of 2026, just not really about a year from now, when they become eligible for Medicare. And that's pretty typical, right? Folks are waiting it out, making sure that their health care choices are basically kind of cemented in, making that easy, which we obviously will help them make that easy transition from company health care to Medicare. They currently have 2 married children and are expecting their first grandchild in May.
Amazing.
Honey, it isn't an amazing thing. It's one of those.
It's not amazing? Then we don't got to worry about it.
You mean amazing that I don't hate them, you mean? No, it's okay. A little jealous, it's okay. You can solve that for me. You know that.
I do have the power.
You do have the power. I don't, so you do. One of their children lives here in town, and the other one has moved to one of my favorite places, Charleston, South Carolina. It's a beautiful city, right on the water. Old South meets the New South. Really kind of fun there. Good golfing. We met them about a year ago for our first coaching session. And as you know, we just received an email from them.
That's right. And the email came from Jim. And he said, Sandy and I want to thank you and Rob for visiting with us last year. We were much more comfortable about the future after our coaching session. Here's an update on our progress so far from our homework. So it sounds like
we left them with a little to-do list.
That's right. After our first coaching session, they were not quite ready to retire yet because at that point they were 2 years out. So we sent them home with a little bit of work to do and asked them to come on back in or check in with us about a year from their retirement, and here we are.
Which isn't unusual. A lot of times there's a couple of things on the checklist as we build that runway towards retirement. And the first thing on their runway was they have made changes in their retirement plan funds to synergize their investments outside their retirement plans with their 401k plans, as I suggested.
That's great. So many times and we find this to be true across the board, that most people look at each individual account almost as a silo, or they are maybe not even exactly sure what they have in each individual account, but they know they want to save money. So they're stuffing money into their retirement plan through work, through payroll deduction, through employer contributions. Maybe they have some savings on the side. Many people over the last few years especially have purchased CDs because those rates were very attractive.
Or they had old 401ks that have just been, gathering
out, gathering dust elsewhere.
Exactly.
And we find that either we see duplication across multiple accounts, or sometimes over-concentration, or maybe their balance just isn't quite in line with what their ultimate goals are. So part of what we do in many cases is say, let's get everything in line, so it's all moving forward in the same direction. You've got all your investments working together.
And I think that was the situation with Jim and Sandy. I think there was a lot of duplications where they were owning the same things across many of their accounts, so we just kind of wanted to unwind that so it brought them more into balance.
Before we continue with Jim and Sandy's homework, why don't we take Scott? He is on line 1. He's got a question about the 529 plans.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I've never heard you live, so I always listen to the podcast. So you all talk a lot slower live, that's for sure.
Okay, we'll slow it down for you, Scott, but thank you for listening. We really appreciate it.
Right. I've got a question regarding the 529 rollover into Roth. I read your newsletter this month. I'm about 54, and we've got a couple of kids that aren't going to use all their 529 plan. And I was wondering, can we roll that Roth or that 529 into a Roth for the owner, or is it just for the beneficiary? Because my wife and I are going to be over the income limits to do a Roth this year. So I was wanting to maybe start converting some of that 529 into a Roth.
Unfortunately,
I love how you're thinking about this.
Right, but unfortunately it has to be, so if you've set them up for the kids, then when you are rolling into a Roth, it's going to have to be in the name of the kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, babe. So how about this one? I'm gonna help our caller a little bit.
Let's try it out. Going to finagle something here.
Well, because we know that we're permitted to change the account
ownership.
Exactly. So what if we were to change it to, let's say, husband or wife?
You actually can do that. So that's a great point.
I guess what I'm not certain about, and this is something maybe we can check on and get back next week, is whether that starts the 15-year clock over again.
That's an interesting point.
Because if it doesn't, then what should happen is that after 15 years have gone by since the initial deposit into the plan, it would be eligible to do a Roth conversion.
That is true. So I do know one thing, which is that
I'm working on it here for you. I'm trying.
So there's one thing that I know for certain is that you've got a few 529 plans. If you combine them all into one, that doesn't start the clock over again. So you could simplify things. But I think what we will do, and Scott, if you'd like to send us an email, so in case you miss us next week, my email is Erin@jblfinancial.com, so ERIN. If you send us a quick email, we'll be sure to get back to you because we're going to check in with the CPA on this one to find out the specific rules, because I do know that, yes, you can rename 529 plans. So, for example, if your eldest child didn't use the 529, you could have renamed it to the second or the third child, and that would have been
we have done that because we have done that because I've got 4 kids, so we've kind of moved the money around. But it's one of those. We would have to open a 529 as being me the beneficiary then,
correct?
So that and then move the money into there, and then we could roll it to the Roth.
Exactly.
is what you're thinking. If the 15-year limit doesn't hit you.
Well, also, even if it did hit you, then you would still be able to convert it 15 years from now. It would, and the money's kind of locked up at this point. Either you're going to give it to the kids or you're going to hang on to it for the grandkids for when they need college education, or you've got taxes to pay when you pull it out. So I would say that really what we would be checking on for you here is how soon could you start converting that 529 into Roth? Is it from day one because they've been in existence for 15 years already, or do we have to wait a few more years? And you would still be able to participate in all of the growth, so you could keep that invested. It would just kind of be locked up for a little bit longer.
Yeah,
would I have to have an earned income in that year, 15 years from now, to be able to roll it?
No, because this is it's more, as opposed to a rollover, it's really kind of considered a conversion, so it's not going to require earned income. But like Rob mentioned in the newsletter, you can only do it if it were today, since you're over 50, you could do the $8,000 a year. 15 years from now, we'll find out what that you'll have to find out what that contribution amount is, and so it would just be limited each year to taking the $8,000 and moving it over.
If there's a loophole, we're gonna identify it, and I'm sure that the Internal Revenue has probably addressed this issue before, and we're going to get some professional advice to get us a second opinion on this so we can give you the information back. So do send us an email.
Yes.
We'd love to do that. And also, thank you so much for a loaded question. We love them.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Thanks for listening to the show.
Sounds good.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You too. Bye.
Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
Well, you asked, and the people have responded because
we have Dave on the line. Good morning, Dave.
Yes, I had a comment about RMDs, and I had to take my first one last year, so you know what my age is.
Grown up.
And I know that in the rule of investing, it never goes up, 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 up. You always have a chance of it going down, down, down. But I've been very lucky the last 35 or 40 years. It has gone up through several different occurrences. But last year I had to take 29,000 RMDs. That's fine. And in fact, I was still able to take a little bit more than that out and still try to remain below the IRMA deal on Medicare.
Great.
But and so it grew so much last year that now I have to take 31,000 out this year. It actually grew by December 31st, the date for the RMD figures. But now the frustrating part is it's gone down about it's down now about 30 or 40,000. Now I got to take 30,000 out, so it's really frustrating when a man-made event has done this to the market, and it's just frustrating. And it can't go up, 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 and I understand that, but now I'm faced with the fact that I got to take more out. I guess I'm lucky that I have it in there.
Well, also, I mean, I would say that at least the bright side here is you have several more months to go before you don't have to have the funds out unless you are in need of the funds until the end of December. So, like you said, it was a man-made event at the beginning of April, but we've seen a nice recovery since then, and hopefully we'll continue to see progress in the market. So instead of taking it all out in one chunk, maybe you're going to decide to take it out in smaller chunks over the course of the year, or wait to see, hopefully, a recovery to the point where you feel comfortable making that withdrawal.
The other thing I would mention certainly is that, one of the options that you do have available to you, and you may be utilizing this, is by directing your custodian to make charitable contributions for you. And that's one way that you can also mitigate the increase in those accounts. But it's an interesting comment.
The taxable part of it.
Right. It's an interesting comment because I was going to say that what happens is that if you're a person that generally, if you don't want the required minimum distribution, then what happens is because it goes up naturally because the factor goes up.
Right. As you get older, the percentage that you're required to take is going to increase every year, relatively slightly.
Right. They start you at or about 4%, and it moves up slightly every year thereafter.
Right. So by 90, you're at about 10%.
Yeah. So if you do have a year where the markets have declined at the end of the year, then what happens is you take out less. And so as I like to say, you're complaining, nobody's listening, right?
Well, it kind of it takes a lot of different faces, I guess, because, for example, this is a great example of this year. At the end of the year, we were in a rally. Really, through January, we were seeing new highs, and then we started to see a pullback from January through April. Now we're starting to see a recovery of that pullback. If you took the funds out in January, you're thinking, man, I was smart. I took the gains out. If you haven't taken those gains yet, then you have the opportunity to let the account rehabilitate over time. One of the ways, and it doesn't sound like our caller was in this position quite yet, because as your required minimum distribution rises, if you're someone that's also facing the income-related Medicare adjustment, that also rises with cost of living on an annual basis. So usually if you're close, hopefully, well, obviously we hope you outpace it because that means your accounts are doing really well, but hopefully the cost of living adjustment is outpacing it for you. But like you said, Dad, if you find yourself a couple thousand over the income-related Medicare adjustment, you might say, this is the year I'm going to be charitable to bring myself below that again, because every dollar that you send directly from your IRA to a charity, so a 501c3 organization, counts towards your required minimum distribution, but is not taxable to you. So that would avoid the income-related Medicare adjustment calculation.
If you're already charitable, let's just be charitable in a tax-efficient way.
Exactly.
Yeah, very good. I mean, that's a very good point, Rob, because yesterday I was meeting with one of our clients who just turned 73 this year. And we had a discussion about this, and we found that they were giving a significant amount each year to their church, not only for general purposes, but also helping in a building project.
And they were taking monthly distributions directly from their IRA and then writing checks to church.
Oh, no.
Well, yes, because now he's a grown-up. 73.
Right.
And so what we're able to do really is just, again, change the direction of that. Instead of sending him all the money, we send him the amount that he normally would receive less the charitable contribution. We had our LPL, our custodian, direct that money to that charity for them. And so what happened was he received $1 for $1. It was really double because
he saves money on the taxes.
Yep, that's right. On the taxes, number one, and then number two is he didn't pay money.
And the other nice thing here is this is not for all of our listeners that are not 73 yet. If you are over the age of 70 and a half, you can do this too. So if you are someone that you're living off of IRA distributions, or maybe you're living off of after-tax distributions from, non-qualified accounts, you're taking the money and then you're distributing them to charities of your choice. Maybe you tithe. What you can do is flip over, just like we did with our client this past week, and say if you're over 70 and a half, you are eligible for the qualified charitable distribution from your IRA. If 70 and a half rings a bell to you, that was the original required minimum distribution age about 5 years ago before they started making adjustments.
And they just never readjusted it.
They did not make the charitable distribution age track the required minimum distribution age. So that stayed at 70 and a half. Unfortunately, if you're under 70 and a half, of course you can still be charitable, but you are not going to get the top line deduction that the qualified charitable distribution creates for you. You'll have to itemize in order to get tax credit for your charitable distributions.
Yeah, I would certainly say that if you're getting close to this age, or you are this age, and you're not taking advantage of things that we're talking about here, possibly on the air, really good idea to meet with your financial advisor.
Yes.
Get a second opinion. Talk to your accountant if you don't have one and you're really just using somebody who's an accountant doing your taxes. Talk about these things with your accountant now.
So you can plan for this year.
For the balance of this year, because, again, what the problem is that once you receive those RMDs.
Or distributions.
The deal's over.
Right.
Got to go directly from the custodian to whatever organization you would like.
And that also means, just to be clear, the check itself has been written to the charitable organization. So, for example, with our clients, we do this in a variety of ways. we are having the check written directly to the charitable institution and mailed directly there. Some clients would prefer to receive the check in the mail and bring it to a charitable organization. Maybe they're going to an event or they want to hand walk it in for whatever reason. The check just needs to be made out to the charity. It can still be delivered to your house because you can't cash it. Only your church.
It's a third-party distribution.
Exactly. So you just want to make sure it's a third-party distribution, but it can be mailed wherever you'd like, to your home or directly to the institution that you're sending the money to. So you have some options, but like you said, Dad, it's great that we aren't quite halfway through the year yet, which means you have a nice runway to really change some of your current habits for the long term and have an impact not only on this tax year, but future tax years.
Absolutely.
So with that, I think before we get back to Jim and Sandy and their homework, why don't we take our first break of the hour?
So don't touch that dial. We'll be back with more Straight Talk on Retirement right after these brief messages.
Hey, Illinois. This is Ben Barnett, board-certified master arborist and owner at Timberline Professional Tree Care. Sorry, St. Louis. This message is for our friends in the Metro East. Did you know that most Missouri-based tree contractors can't legally travel into Illinois? This is due to federal motor carrier regulations that require large trucks and their drivers to be registered with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration in order to travel across state lines. Almost all other tree services in Missouri fail to meet the requirements for safety, drug and alcohol testing, and equipment maintenance that are required for interstate travel. Here at Timberline, we meet and exceed all of these requirements and will be glad to travel across the river to meet all of your tree care needs. Call us today at 636-479-7475 for tree fertilization, pruning, insect and disease treatment, or complete removal. Or visit our website at stltreecare.com. That's stltreecare.com for service in the Metro East area.
Surprise! Your expenses this month were way higher than you expected. Also, you forgot to renew your website domain, and now you're in a bidding war.
You should see the look on your face.
At Progressive, we know small business owners don't usually like surprises because they cost you money. But a good surprise that could save you money? Getting a commercial auto quote from Progressive.
Plus, the fridge died in the break room, and now everything smells weird.
Surprise yourself. See if you can save in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Got gold? Get green at Jewels on Hampton. Jewels on Hampton pays the most for your precious metals. Jewelry, gems, currency, antiques, and collectibles. Jewels on Hampton buys precious and semi-precious gems and stones, scrap gold, and sterling silver. Jewels on Hampton buys and sells paper money, wristwatches, and pocket watches. They even take pianos and cars. To sum up, bring your gold chains, bracelets, rings, coins, dental gold, and more to Jewels on Hampton, 4506 Hampton Avenue in St. Louis. And get green. Online at jewelsonhampton.com.
Hey, it's Heidi, and I feel very lucky to love where I live. And I know Lauren Risley feels the same. And her team at Lauren Risley Realty wants you to experience that same great feeling. One of their mottos at Lauren Risley Realty is love where you live or move. Dream homes are their specialty. Actually, they do a lot of things right, because when you buy or sell a home, it's not just a transaction. What the Lauren Risley team does is build relationships, and I've seen that firsthand. So if you have plans to buy, sell, invest, or just have a question about any of it, call Lauren Risley Realty, 314-775-0684. That's 314-775-0684. You can also email Lauren at hello@laurenrisleyrealty.com.
This is Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to the show. It's 9:40 here on the Big 550 KTRS. 20 years and going strong.
Getting stronger every day.
20 years and counting.
There you go. Yeah, your mom's going, who's counting?
Well, Mom couldn't even remember that. She's only 25.
Well, exactly. So, again, thanks so much for tuning into the show. Before we begin, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. And before we were taking our calls, which we love, and texts, we're talking a little bit about Jim and Sandy, who had visited with Aaron and Rob about a year ago. As usual, they received a little bit of homework to do, which is let's make some adjustments. We made some suggested adjustments to their retirement plan portfolio so that could synergize with the other investments that they had. They also mentioned that, and it was recommended that they add a little bit more, about $300 per month to their vault savings so they could get close to reaching their target goal of $30,000 a year. And interestingly enough, we asked them, are you in a high-yielding money market account where you're earning interest today instead of the savings bank interest that is keeping the bank doors open? And they also made some of those changes. But like most folks, they are excited, but also a little nervous because they're getting close to retirement. So they answered them, which is to say, we started building that bridge for them to cross into retirement, and it always makes good sense to revisit where you are and make sure that you're on track. But there are always some questions that come up, especially for folks prior to making the leap, taking the jump, that we'd like to talk about, right?
Absolutely. And the first one being, are you both emotionally committed to retiring in April? If not, what has changed to make either of you put off this decision, and for how long? Which is not unreasonable because, as you like to say, you have to be emotionally right. It's not just a financial decision. It's an emotional decision, too.
Yes, I mean, you're giving up the money. You're giving up the relationships. You're getting back that time. And for some folks, they may be a little confused. What am I going to do with my time? They haven't made plans. Maybe they've received an offer at work that they can't refuse. Their job situation has changed, hopefully to the positive, but sometimes it's to the negative. And sometimes they look at each other and go, you know what? I don't know if I feel comfortable for both going at the same time. So that's really important to check that and see where they are, right?
You've got a great little quip about having tread left on the tire. And yes. I think that speaks to a lot of people that, I'm just not ready to give up, as you said, the relationships, the structure, and the discipline of work. And a lot of our clients have very rewarding jobs, and they get a lot from it, and it's a lot to give up.
Yeah, it was interesting because, as you guys know, I was visiting with one of our clients who's been retired for 6 years now. And this was a involuntary retirement. He didn't want to quit work, but his job was eliminated. And he had made the decision that he didn't have enough. He had still a little bit of tread left on the tires. He wanted to continue to work, only do it on a part-time basis. He felt like on his terms, and started working about 20 hours a week. He's changed job 2 or 3 times. As funny as every time he comes in, he talks about, I'm really thinking that I'd like to leave. I said, great. What's holding you back? And he answers the same thing every time. I like the money. I like the relationships. I like the time while I'm at work. Does he need the money? We always are rechecking his game plan every time he comes in. He doesn't need the money. But he needs the relationships is really what he needs, and he also needs the time being eaten up in his schedule. Everybody goes through this in their own phases, and it's okay. And as we have said before, and I'm sure you know, folks, some people will leave because they think they're ready, and then they find out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road that they really weren't. They still do have tread left on the tires. They're going to maybe do something maybe totally different, something related. Who knows? But again, you have to be emotionally ready, right?
Absolutely. And, you talk about all that time that you'll have in retirement. My math says that's 16 hours a day. And, you scale that up by 7 and then, 4 weeks over the month. That's a lot of time. And if you haven't thought through how you're going to be spending that time, you could end up a little bit rudderless, and no one wants to end up rudderless in retirement.
I don't want to interrupt our conversation about Jim and Sally, but I sent an email to one of our CPA friends.
Yes.
And I already got a response.
Of course.
About the 529 plan question.
Very good.
So, Scott, if you're still listening.
Of course he is.
It is unclear whether renaming a beneficiary on a 529 plan will start the 15-year clock over again. The IRS has not actually provided any additional guidance on that yet, because the way the legislation is written, it simply says that the account must be maintained for 15 years. It doesn't say it needs to be maintained with a certain beneficiary being continuous throughout. So what he is advising is that we wait. You don't want to be the IRS test case for this, although it's not a large amount of money. However, $8,000 in this particular case. You don't necessarily want to be the test case for the IRS to determine what the legislation should be. So they should eventually provide some additional guidance on this. They just haven't yet.
You know, it's interesting because I would think that the Internal Revenue is pretty smart. And I'm just wondering is, with the reporting that would occur when that conversion happened in the 15th year, or actually I guess year 16, what information they're actually reporting, and also what information does the IRS already have? I mean,
this is you trying to get cute again.
Well, I'm not getting cute. I'm just trying to, I always seem to find the wrinkle, the hole in these things. But I have a feeling that you're right. Until this is litigated, which is generally what happens, we aren't going to know. But intuitively, my thought here is that he would be okay as long as he made sure that the 15 years was followed, because the account number would, in theory, stay the same, right? We're not creating a new account number, I hope. We're just substituting the beneficiary.
Scott, my dad's not going to wear the orange jumpsuit for you.
No, I'm not. I'm certainly not going to do that, but I came up with a cool idea, right?
I think so. I mean,
why wouldn't you?
I hadn't thought of changing the beneficiary, because I thought maybe that would restart the clock, when here to come to find out that the IRS hasn't even got around to litigating that question yet. So hopefully we'll keep our fingers crossed for Scott that the IRS, scores one for the little guy and he's able to roll over those funds.
Well, it's a tracking mechanism. It's sort of like with your requirement of distributions. We know each custodian is reporting to the Internal Revenue Service what the requirement of distribution is for the year. And we know they have the ability to then collate that data to know how much you're supposed to take, so that if you didn't take enough, you're subject to a penalty. So that's cool. But I don't believe that they're receiving information on who the beneficiary of the 529 is. And I will bet that if we don't change the account number,
and the account has been maintained for 15 years,
then you should be, in theory, you should be golden. But as my daughter says, because of my natural skin tone and orange, I don't look good in orange, so I'm not going to suggest that to anybody. But, again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. And with that said, let's take our break number 2 of the hour, and we'll be back to answer your calls and your texts.
Absolutely. So don't touch that dial. We'll be back with more Straight Talk on Retirement right after these brief messages.
Look at our alums, the contributions that they have made throughout industries in the St. Louis region.
Terry Freerks, a graduate of the University of Missouri, St. Louis.
UMSL is embedded in the fabric of the St. Louis community. We're hands-on, and when our students graduate, they are definitely career ready, but maybe more importantly, they're career confident.
More is what moves us. Find your more at more.umsl.edu.
It's Kubota Orange Days. From America's #1 selling compact tractor to zero-turn mowers and versatile RTVs, get your perfect match delivered to your door. And now through June 30th, get 0 down, 0% APR for 84 months on select compact tractors. See the details at KubotaOrangeDays.com.
Stop by Oakville Equipment for a test drive and see our full line of Kubota tractors. You can also visit us at oakvilleequipment.com.
Repairing chimneys, walkways, porches, foundations, entire homes, anything to do with brick or stone, you need a tuck pointer you can trust, and that, of course, is Morelli. Morelli is a family-run business started in 1991, and they're only as good as their last customer. That's why when you check out the reviews online at MorelliTuckPointing.com, you'll notice that they're actual customers who are singing the praises of Morelli. So if you need a tuck pointer, you need Morelli. 314-645-1387 or MorelliTuckPointing.com.
Gingham's Homestyle Restaurant has been a staple in St. Charles for 35 years. Our comfortable, casual atmosphere offers some of the best comfort food you've ever had. Customers might know our delicious breakfast, but you can have whatever you want, anytime you want, with our full menu 24 hours a day. Nothing warms your heart like Gingham's famous vegetable soup, and we can cater your event, too. If you like homestyle food and great friendly service, you'll love Gingham's Restaurant in St. Charles. 636-946-0266 or ginghamsrestaurant.com.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, we've got about 8 minutes left in hour number 1 of Straight Talk on Retirement. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. Erica's waiting, wanting, and willing to answer that phone. We're happy to take your questions at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the KTRS text line. Before we
get back to
yes, ma'am.
Jim and Sandy, we had a quick text that just wanted us to clarify what the heck we were talking about on those 529 plans. Mm-hmm. Which was just that we had a caller earlier in the hour that asked, his children, he had 529 plans created for his children. They've since made it through college, didn't need to use all of those funds. Could he roll those 529s into a Roth in his name or his wife's name based on the new rules? And
the answer was maybe, but not in the form that they're in today.
Correct. So you would have to rename the beneficiary of those 529 plans in your own names, which you could do. But the question then arises,
does that restart the 15-year clock on being able to roll that money over?
And the IRS hasn't decided that yet.
Which is cool. So we're not going to hold our breath waiting, but it was a very good question. And what's nice is that we do have other professionals that we work with and depend on everybody to get to us quickly, because
even on Saturday mornings,
they're listening to the show.
You send a quick email and like 15 seconds later
got an answer.
That's amazing.
Life is good. So again, we were talking about Jim and Sandy. These folks that come in and visit with Aaron and Rob about a year ago. They had a little homework, some things we had made some suggestions for them to do to get themselves a little more ready. They're 12 months away. Came in for a recheck, which is great. First question Rob asked, as we always do, is, are you both emotionally ready to make this change? And if not, why not? Secondarily, then we're going to, okay, so tell us about your game. In terms of your game plan, it's all about cash flow. Have your fixed and or lifestyle expenses changed? And do we have any new obligations that we need to consider, or capital expenditures that we need to consider to add into our financial formula?
And there's always a last car, a kitchen remodel, a vacation. Not always, but these are some of the more common things that we see in this regard.
Well, I guess and really what we're getting to is everything going the way that it was? And number two is there anything that now is showing up on the radar that wasn't there previously? And next question was, has either of you had a significant change in health?
Very important.
Because health obviously can be very impactful in making decisions, especially about Social Security, sometimes if you do have pension elections as well, to do that. And then the final question was, and again, we have a minimum, but here are 4 of them that were picked out, was, as the kids are now in 2 different cities, where do you see spending your time, and which city will be your home base? It's not unusual that when it's grandma and grandpa time, we get calls, we're on the road, okay? We're moving to, we want to be with that grandchild, etc., and that's not unusual. So that was an important question that we really needed to ask, because obviously there are other costs, expectations associated with that stuff.
You have a nice quip when it comes to grandma and grandpa time, and the grandchild is in a different city. I believe it is. When you leaving?
Exactly. When are you leaving?
And that does impact long-term game planning, because if we're considering the sale of a house, maybe the purchase of another house, or maybe the acquisition of a apartment in a different city, we want to be able to factor all of those expenses in.
Or if they were on a glide path to pay off a mortgage, but this isn't going to be where they are, maybe we're forestalling
that back.
Absolutely.
Well, or, and then certainly the next thing would be, we know that a lot of their, especially for if the children are out of town, a lot of their leisure time, we'll call it, it's really called holidays, because you don't take a vacation when you're already retired, we'll be spending time with that grandchild. Well, do we need to create an allowance, a trip fund for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times a year for that to happen? So that's all kind of important. And we do have a couple minutes left. So Rob, why don't you go through the numbers for us, okay?
And their current after-tax spending is $7,200 a month, and we have to increase that by $500 for travel for the kids, as we were discussing.
Because luckily they're just in Kansas City, so it's not a big... No plane tickets, maybe train tickets.
So their new after-tax total would be $7,700, and we know we have to add taxes back in, and that's going to be $1,600 more. So they need a monthly need of $9,300. Now, both of their Social Securities combined are $5,300, so that leaves us with a monthly deficit of $4,000, or $48,000 for the year. Using a prudent rate of withdrawal of 4%, we know we need $1.2 million of what Jeff likes to call the milk money to satisfy that need long term without degrading the asset.
But if you remember from the beginning, Jim and Sandy are only 64 years old. They'll be 65 when they retire if they decide to wait the full year. But if we need to bridge them from retirement to their Social Security eligibility, that's going to be about 3 years of having to fund the full income need versus just what Social Security doesn't pick up.
So that would be the $9,300 times 12 times 3.
Right. So it's a little over $300,000. So together, their total capital required, income before Social Security, capital after Social Security, is about $1.5 million. Fortunately,
and the way we got to the 1.5 is when we add that bridge to Medicare, bridge to Social Security income, we are being ultra conservative. We're assuming literally no growth on those assets. So we're just saying it's going to cost over $300,000 to do that. We're going to add that into the ongoing capital need.
And we know that Jim has approximately $1.6 million in his 401k plan. Sandy has about $340 in her 403b program. They also have Roths of about $45,000, which is terrific. That's again another real source of capital for us, and their vault savings are approximately $85,000. So their total is about $2.1 million.
Rock stars.
Rock stars. So they'll be able to do the things that they want to from a cash flow point of view. What we're really then getting back to is, hey, are they emotionally ready? Are they? We know they're financially ready.
Right.
Where are they going to live, and are they both going to go at the same time? Don't know the answer, but the fun of being a planner.
We get to be along for the ride.
Exactly. The journey is always fun. It sometimes has some bumps, but the bottom line is it's really fun and a privilege to be asked on that. And certainly we're going to ask you for the privilege. Stay on with us. We have hour number 2 of Straight Talk on Retirement. That's going to happen right after these commercial messages. So stay with us, would you?
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Welcome back, everyone, to hour number 2 of Straight Talk on Retirement. As always, we're going to kick this hour off with our Smart Choices About Your Healthcare segment.
And they are smart choices, and because you care, we talk Medicare.
That's right. So if you have any Medicare questions, any health insurance questions, don't hesitate. 314-931-5877 or send us a text, 84126 on the text line. So I think last week we spent some time talking about when it might make sense to hop off your Medicare coverage if you are currently using employer-based coverage. So we thought we would continue that and do a review, use an example of a review you and Frank had this past week.
Oh, we got an interesting email from a gentleman who had been a listener to our show for the last few years now, and he says, you know, Rob and Frank, I've been listening to your show for a few years now, and you guys always provide great advice. I am turning 65 in September and considering retiring and taking Medicare. Between my wife and I, we make over $350,000 a year. Oh, that's
fantastic.
Congratulations. We are on my wife's employer's coverage, paying $450 a month for the both of us.
What a great price.
Absolutely. She is only 58 years old, so she will continue to work for at least the next 3 years before she retires. He doesn't have any major health issues right now, but his doctor told him he could lose some weight. You know, I feel like that's like the standard. I feel everyone could lose a little bit, myself included.
Just lose a little bit of weight.
Yeah, everyone could take off 15.
Solves everything.
There's no problem that you have that 15 to 20 pounds wouldn't help alleviate. I mean, it may not solve all of them, but
put you on the right track.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So where were we? Oh yeah, so he can lose a little bit of weight. So he's prescribed him some Zepbound,
which is one of those GLP-1s. It's a brand name.
He doesn't pay anything for Zepbound right now because he's getting it free through a manufacturer discount. We love that.
Excellent.
So his question is, would it be better for him to join Medicare, or should he stay on his wife's coverage even after he retires?
This is a great question, and it's a great time to have this conversation because he's got some lead time to consider. You know, he's got a couple of options here. He's got some lead time to consider what he'd like to do. I think the first thing that's important to point out is everything else we mentioned in terms of age, when, you know, who's on whose coverage is clear. But it was nice that we also received his income amount.
It's so important in this equation.
That's right. Which is, and we discussed this briefly in the last hour with with one of our callers about the income-related Medicare adjustment. Well, with a combined household income of $350,000, what would the Medicare Part B premium be? Because the standard is $185, right?
It is. He would pay $480.90.
$480 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think, is it okay? All right.
Between the both of them, they make around $350. So the joint tax return is $334 to $400,000, and that comes out to but there's also the $57 for Part D.
Oh, that's right. So there's an additional adjustment as your income rises. Not only is your Medicare Part B premium impacted, but your prescription drug premium is impacted. And that's true if you're paying a prescription drug premium or not. So if you have a zero premium standalone prescription drug plan, or you have a Medicare Advantage plan that has no premium, the government's going to tack on how much?
$57
a month.
Yes, sir.
All right.
So that you add those two up, you're looking at almost $540 a month.
That's right. So perfect. So I just wanted to clarify that for everyone, you know, why we're talking about income at this juncture. But let's go through, you know, obviously our emailer has a couple of options.
He does. And option one, get off wife's plan and take full Medicare Part A's and B, and buy a supplement plan, or take Medicare Advantage plan. So again, Part A will be free. That's hospital coverage. Part B, normally the standard cost is $185 a month, but because him and his wife are such great earners, he will have an income-related Medicare income adjustment. If he continues to work and earn $350,000 a year, he will pay an additional
monthly, that $540 that we talked about.
Exactly, and that includes the $57 for Part D.
All right, so option one, automatically, before we even discuss, is Medicare Advantage the right option? Is a supplement the right option? Just to take Medicare Part B, our texter is going to be paying more for himself, almost $540 a month, than his wife is currently paying for both of them to be covered at the same time.
Right, because even if his wife plan reduces by half and he were to take Medicare, so she goes from $450 to $225, they would still be paying much more because we'd have to add that $225 to the $537. So that's going to bring us out to almost $770 a month instead of the $450 they're currently paying.
And we haven't even gotten into the conversation about the new cost of his Zepbound medication because, unfortunately, once you join Medicare, you're no longer eligible for manufacturer discounts in most cases. So that free medication is now going to have a cost associated with it. You know, there is a $2,000 limit on prescription drug expenses annually.
But Zepbound and Wegovy, which are two of the most popular weight loss drugs, are not covered under any Medicare drug plans. That means if you decide to join Medicare, you will have to self-pay for those drugs, and that will not count towards the $2,000 maximum.
Right. Or, you know, and for anybody that's currently taking either of those medications and you are considering Medicare, there are other options available to you in the GLP-1 space. If your physician has a medical reason why you need one of those brand name medications over another, then there's many cases where you would be able to have an exception made for you. They call that usually it's a tier exception, it's usually called a formulary exception, which means your physician just writes into the insurance company, explains the medical necessity for your prescription, and your medication will be added to the formulary, but at the highest tier. So most likely you'll still end up spending that full $2,000, where previously he was spending nothing.
And, you know, when me and Frank were discussing this topic, he said one of the rare tier exceptions he did see for weight loss medications
formulary exceptions.
Exactly, were for obstructive sleep apnea. So he has seen where they will make an exception if your doctor writes it up in a way that puts you under that heading.
So many, many individuals, and we've all heard this in the news, and maybe from friends and such, that many people are taking GLP-1s not for a medical necessity that they were originally defined to help prevent. So reducing A1C, diabetes, so anyone that's diabetic in those situations, maybe they're now using it for weight loss, which is obviously something that will improve health. However, Medicare and the rest of the insurance community has not caught up with the new application of the medication. So Medicare isn't covering it for specific needs. They're only covering it for the original intent of the medication, or, as you and Frank found, for sleep apnea, which is another medical use of the medication. So you'd still have options if you're so this is not intent to terrify anyone headed to care. There are options to make things more economical for you if you're someone that's using one of these medications. So you have options to switch to a generic, which will make it less expensive, or maybe have a chat with your doctor before you're transitioning on to Medicare. But in our emailer's case, we're going to go from not paying anything to paying $2,000 or more for a medication, in addition to paying more for the premium for the right to be on Medicare. And all of that was prior to even us discussing how are we going to supplement that Medicare coverage. It's also important to keep in mind that, let's say our emailer elects Medicare but decides to keep his spouse's coverage as the secondary coverage, so using the employer-based coverage as the supplement to Medicare, which some people have elected to do. that is not one. You're still going to have to pay the Medicare Part B premium.
Ouch.
That's not going to alleviate the premium of that his wife is paying for the employer-based plan. So now you've got two premiums to pay, and that is going to eliminate the manufacturer discount because you've enrolled in Medicare.
And just as an aside to that, the Zepbound, we did a little digging, and that would cost him a little over $4,000 a year to self-pay. And we haven't even gotten into, a lot of these numbers are assuming that he went with an Advantage plan. If we have to stack on a supplement on top of these numbers, that's going to be at least between $180 and $200 more a month.
So let's talk about option one. Doesn't sound that great.
Option one sounds like a money pit.
So tell me what is and the other nice thing is we've got a few years to go. His wife is young. She wants to keep working. So he's got the option to stay on her coverage. What's an alternative for him aside from just taking Medicare?
He could stay on his wife's plan, continue paying the $450 monthly, and continue to get Zepbound for free. When he and his wife retire in the next 3 years, we can file for an appeal for his Part B costs due to a life-changing event, reducing his Part B back to the standard $185 instead of the $537.90. This is the option we took mainly due to the Zepbound not being covered by Medicare and the $700 and almost $40 cost. And like I said, we didn't even get to the part where we talked about Medicare Advantage versus supplement, because then we would be piling on another $200 on top of the $740.
So a few things. Option two, we did not mention electing Medicare Part A, even though it's free. If you are someone that is eligible for Medicare, but you are on a spouse's coverage or you are on your own coverage and that employer's coverage has more than 20 employees, do not elect your Medicare Part A benefit if you are receiving a manufacturer discount for prescriptions. Do not elect your Medicare Part A benefit if you have access to an HSA plan, which is a health savings account. Taking any part of Medicare is going to eliminate your ability to contribute to your HSA plan. It's also going to eliminate your manufacturer discount eligibility. So it's important to have conversations with someone's like Rob and Frank before you make these decisions, because there are many misconceptions out there.
There's a lot that you don't know.
And one of which, the most important one, is that if you turn 65, you absolutely have to enroll in Medicare or you're going to get a penalty. That is not always the case. In fact, you might be penalizing yourself by enrolling in Medicare too soon. Basically, what the rules say is that if you are 65, you are eligible to take your Medicare benefit. That does not mean you must take your Medicare benefit. Who has to take it or they'll face a penalty? If you're on COBRA. If you're on individual health insurance.
And we get that question so often about COBRA, and a lot of people think that that's qualified credible care, but it is. They do not consider it to be, even though it's basically the privatized or the single version of what you had at work. For whatever reason, they don't consider it to be.
Well, for the reason. So it's qualified coverage. It's just that COBRA says you have access to your COBRA rights, which COBRA is not a plan. COBRA is the ability for your health insurance from your employer to be portable. So it gives you the opportunity to have your, just like Rob said, individualize your group health insurance plan for 18 or 36 months, depending upon your situation and how you are enrolled in the plan. But that is only when you do not have access to other coverage. When you turn 65, you have access to Medicare. So Medicare says no more COBRA. You need to take Medicare at that point. So if you stay on COBRA and you exceed your initial election onto Medicare, you will be penalized and you'll have to wait to take your Medicare benefit. If you're using individual coverage like the Affordable Care Act, or you still call it Obamacare, you need to take Medicare. If you have nothing, you have no coverage, you need to take Medicare.
I was just going to say, in many cases, taking Medicare is going to be much, much cheaper than COBRA, and it's going to be much more beneficial than an Obamacare plan, because you're going to be able to control those. If you come onto a Medicare Advantage or even with a supplement, you're probably most likely going to be paying less and getting much, much, much more. We had
fantastic point about that. Paying less, getting more, not only in terms of benefits, but also in terms of access. The networks are significantly larger. Doesn't matter if you're using the Medicare network through a supplement or you're using Medicare Advantage and a more defined network. They are larger than individual health insurance policies. The final people that need to take Medicare at 65 will be individuals that work for employers that have less than 20 employees. You need to check to see if your employer's plan is primary or not. That's questionable. It's based on the insurer that you have. And then the final group, and they probably aren't listening to us right now, if you are incarcerated at 65 years old and you're going to be released at any point in your life, you need to take your Medicare benefits or you'll be penalized for not having done so. It's bizarre, but that is also true. So we won't leave it out. So those are the only...
And you know that because you actually had to onboard someone who was in a correctional facility and they got out, and... Remind me, did they have to pay the penalty or were they penalized?
So this is interesting. You are correct in that we did have this situation which the spouse of someone that was not a client, but they heard me on the radio and they gave a call to ask the question, and then we assisted them, which was my husband's incarcerated and he is 65. Do I still need to pay the Medicare Part B premium while he's in jail? He has access to coverage through the correctional facility. The answer is yes. You still have to pay. Now, if you don't, then you have to re-enroll during Medicare Part B open enrollment, which is January through March, and you'll get a July effective date. So you could be without coverage for an extended period of time depending upon that situation. So simply by telling her to continue to pay that premium, she avoided the penalty and his loss of coverage. But you do still need to take it. So that's not a funny aside, but it is an aside where there are interesting nuances, just like Rob said. It's not what you know. In many cases, it's what you don't know while you're making these decisions that can be a little bit detrimental. Now, if our emailer had made the decision to go with option one and, he jumped on Medicare, he's paying more.
He's losing that manufacturer's discount right off the bat, so that's $4,000 out the door.
He's probably not going to be thrilled about that decision. But he didn't do anything wrong in the sense nobody's coming to get him. There's no issues. Staying on the employer plan, same thing. This is a better option. So last week we talked about it made sense. We were able to save, I think it was upwards of $1,000 a year by having a spouse hop off of the employer plan and jump onto Medicare. There was a savings involved there. It makes sense to have a review of these things before you make a decision, because that way, one, you're going to see what all the options are available to you, and then you get to make the best decision with as much information as possible versus just working off of what you think you might know. So we kind of talked about who has to take Medicare when they turn 65.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't have to take Medicare when they turn 65? If you are employed, and you are working for a company that has more than 20 employees, and you are utilizing their coverage, you don't have to take Medicare. You don't have to take Medicare Part A. You don't have to take Medicare Part B. Some people elect to take Medicare Part A. That's called the hospital benefit. The way I think about Medicare Part A, it's where your body's at. It's at the hospital. It's at hospice. It's at rehab. It's your facilities charge. So in some cases, if you are admitted to the hospital and you have elected your Part A in addition to maintaining your employer-based coverage, you might see a little benefit from it. However, like we talked about, if you're using a manufacturer discount or if you are someone that has an HSA plan, you're going to lock yourself out of those two things by electing Medicare Part A. So maybe the best choice is do nothing.
Absolutely, and I would strongly encourage everyone that has the ability to take advantage of an HSA plan to strongly consider doing so, because these plans can be vitally important as you go through Medicare, if nothing more than just reimbursing your Part B premiums.
Right, because they are what's called triple tax advantage. You put the money in pre-tax, so similar to an IRA or a 401k, you get a deduction on your income for what you contribute.
It grows tax-free.
Right, tax deferred, because there's a caveat here. As long as you use it for qualified medical expenses while you are pulling it out, there are no taxes. Now, if you pull the money out to use it for something else, you got to pay the taxes.
You do. It's almost like a traditional IRA at that point.
Exactly. The other thing that I was going to mention is who else doesn't have to take Medicare. So we said if you are employed, if you are the spouse of an employed individual and you are utilizing their health insurance. So just like our emailer, he is on his wife's coverage, but he is on his wife's coverage. He's not the employee, but he is still covered under the employer plan. So the same rules apply if you are the employee or the spouse or dependent of an employee. You have the same rights as the person that's employed. It's just that you only have access to the employer-based coverage through the employee. So it's kind of like a chain. However, everyone on the chain gets the same benefits. So if you're in that position, again, that's why it didn't make sense for our emailer to take Medicare for all the reasons we described. But last week, we had the same conversation, and it made sense to jump off of Medicare. So, you know when you're turning 65, which gives you plenty of lead time to have a conversation, an ongoing conversation in many cases. Frank is solely dedicated to Medicare in our office. Rob does a lot of Medicare work with us as well. So you've got two people in the office that have the time to have these conversations with you. If you're already working with an agent, it also makes sense to have a conversation with them to see what your best choices are as you progress on to Medicare, or as you progress into retirement, because there are multiple enrollment periods that will give you access to Medicare. Let's make sure that you choose the right one.
And speaking of those open enrollment periods, Frank and I will be attending a conference next week, and hopefully we'll get some sneak previews of maybe some changes that are coming down the pike. And these changes will be here in, my math says, 4 months?
That's right, and great point. Last year we heard about the premium increases that were going to happen on supplements, and those seem to have been slightly delayed, so we jumped the gun a little bit, but not too much, because just this past week, we received a notification. Mutual of Omaha is one of the companies that we worked with for quite a long time on the supplement side of things. We still work with them. We have clients that are utilizing those supplements. They are projecting, or they are about to announce, so it's not a projection any longer, a 20% increase on their supplements, including those individuals that are enrolled in a Mutual of Omaha supplement. So if you're currently utilizing Mutual of Omaha for your Plan F, your Plan G, your Plan N, you're about to get a letter in the mail that is going to reflect a pretty significant increase.
So if you were paying $200 a month, that's going up $40 a month.
That's right.
That's another $500 a year. And as my father likes to say, when it comes to supplements, you're on an escalator, and it's going up.
But the cool news, it's cool. If you live in Missouri, you have the opportunity on your anniversary date. So when you originally elected your supplement, every year you can make a switch to a different supplement. So you don't have to wait till open enrollment. You don't have to have the next 6 months of the increased premium necessarily. And you don't have to wait, like I said, you don't have to wait till that open enrollment to switch to a Medicare Advantage plan. That's not your only. And if you live in Missouri, you do have the opportunity to make a switch to another supplement company using the same supplement if the premium feels advantageous to you. So if you're able to save a few dollars, it's a great opportunity to call the person that sold it to you, or give Frank or Rob a call at 314-863-0008. They can walk you through how that anniversary date rule works in Missouri, when you're eligible, and what options you might have.
Another W for the state of Missouri.
That's right.
I really feel like Missouri is like the best kept secret in the country.
Well, let's not tell. Well,
right.
At least this station only goes to Missouri and Illinois, so we're nice and local. But the other cool thing that you mentioned there about how great Missouri is, I just read that Missouri Congress passed that they are no longer going to include capital gains in income tax calculations. Just has to be signed by the governor.
Governor Keogh.
How cool is that?
Just rack up another W for the state.
First, they got rid of Social Security taxes in the state of Missouri, which was great, and now we're going to get rid of another tax, which is also nice. But you know what else is nice?
Hanging out for our last half hour of the show.
That's right. So we're going to take our first break of this hour. When we get back, we'll be here to answer your calls and your questions. So please give us a call, 314-931-5877 or 84126 on the text line. We'll be right back.
Why do the national tax resolution firms need the tiny fine print at the bottom of all their TV ads? Hi, this is Lance Drury with the Lance Drury Law Firm. You don't hear fast-talking disclaimers in our ads because the claims we make are 100% transparent. The Lance Drury Law Firm primarily focuses on one thing, IRS problems, and we're regulated by the Bar Association, and we have a AAA rating with the Better Business Bureau. IRS issues are serious legal issues. The Lance Drury Law Firm has helped thousands of clients navigate the best resolution plans, and we tell you up front exactly how much it'll cost. Tax resolution law is all we do. So before you send money to some out-of-town, high-pressure salesperson, give us a call at the Lance Drury Law Firm, located right here in St. Louis. Call today to schedule your free consultation with me, 314-260-6120, or visit LanceDruryLaw.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
Progressive presents Employee of the Month. Small Business Edition. Today's recipient from Michaela's Mobile Spa, Michaela! Michaela got a quick business insurance quote from Progressive and chose from over 30 customizable coverages. Sure, it helps she's her only employee and does literally everything. But while others would rest on their laurels, Michaela was hard at work saving big. So take that, hypothetical other employee who doesn't exist. Be your own Michaela. See if you could save in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Coverage is not available in all states or for all vehicles and coverage selections.
This is Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to the show. We're halfway through hour number 2 of Straight Talk on Retirement, season 20. It's kind of fun.
It's amazing when you think about it.
You know, and so, as you know, I like to take a little break while you are doing your Medicare segment, which is just, it's just fabulous, being obviously able to offer this service to our listeners, to our clients. Being able to make that transition from companies paid health insurance to individual health insurance, and really talking about it every week, which really is fun. And Erin, you don't know this, but
I don't.
In 30 days,
yes,
I will have my 46th year in the financial services area.
Oh, I knew that.
Did you?
We've been counting. We're waiting till you get to half a century.
You know, and while we were on a break, I was thinking a little bit about this, and kind of brought me back to when I was much younger and going to business, going to work with your grandpa. He would take me in on the weekends. I was probably 12 or 13 at the time, so innocent.
Over 13, I think that's called child abuse.
Well, it wasn't, because I always got a really nice lunch out of it.
Oh, that's nice.
Which was fun. So, I think I may have mentioned, my dad would put me in a room, in a conference room, put on a VHS tape, and I would be watching tapes of life insurance agents, really good ones, making presentations, etc. And he called it subscribing, but I would have these large Dun & Bradstreet directories, and I would be making index cards.
What is
for
a
him.
Dun & Bradstreet directory?
It's basically name, address, phone number, number of employees.
Oh, so it's like
name.
Of businesses.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now they don't make books anymore.
Don't they call it the Book of Lists now or something, and it's online published, something along those lines?
Yes, and that's where it's collated. I was in uncollated, so it would I would work from zip code areas.
Okay.
And I would make these index cards because your grandpa would either make calls, which he really didn't do, or he would send out letters, which he always did do. He didn't always follow up on the letters, but etc. And I would watch these tapes. And, I didn't think about it at the time because, of course, I'm 12 or 13. I mean, I'm thinking about that kind of stuff, thinking about baseball cards and girls and that kind of stuff. But it was interesting because what fascinated me, and actually what made me want to go back to work with him after that was, and again, he was a life insurance agent, so I was watching things about how life insurance was being used by families to help them meet their goals. Either passing a business on from one generation to the next, creating money to pay off debt, creating money if somebody died prematurely to deal with college education, etc. All these different needs. And, I really came to the conclusion that, my dad was doing noble work. This was important.
Sure.
And it was great. And so, I'm helping the family. I didn't really mind going with him and doing this. And I think about my career and sort of how I've morphed over the years from being a life insurance agent to becoming an employee benefit specialist, an estate planner, a business planner, and then obviously taking all of this knowledge and skills and becoming the retirement coach, which didn't exist 25 years ago. I mean, there was no retirement planning. But through all of those years, I was going to say I've kind of realized one or two things that I wanted to share, and we talked a little bit about some of them last week, but you had to become an expert in the products that you had available to you, whether they were insurance products or mutual funds or stock, whatever it would be, so that you could use them in an effective way. But at the end of the day, as the product sponsors are attempting to continuously fill you with information and how great their stuff is, etc., I came to the conclusion that it's the planning that makes things work. It isn't the products. The products are never the solutions. And so when I started this show 20 years ago, I really wanted to begin with the whole concept that life is an algebra problem, and it truly is. The formula for dealing with retirement, one that we use, is always putting the horse before the cart, okay? Because the cart is really the investment model that we develop to deliver the returns that are needed to fill in the hole that isn't there for our clients' income needs. I mean, basically, this is what it comes down to.
The financial product is not the solution. The solution is what it gives us.
I love how he says it's never the solution.
Never.
I mean, it truly is never. It really is never the solution. That's why we always, and we talk about on the show with folks that come in and visit with us during coaching sessions, which are great. And we see people every week. Right. Literally, people come in, they hear us, they're ready, they raise their hands, they come in.
Or they're friends and family of people that have come in to see us.
Exactly. They have nice parking lot, free parking.
Nice big parking spaces, not that Clayton parking anymore.
Exactly. We have great variety of coffee and other drinks. We have a terrific staff. Just
many treats.
Friendly atmosphere. And what's nice is that we get the privilege of playing This Is Your Life. Where do we want to go, and how is a cash flow game plan going to help us to get there? And we always talk about the algebra. What are your inflows? What are your outflows? How do we time things in an appropriate way so that we can get to where we want to go? And at the end, it's developing a portfolio to make that happen. Mm-hmm. The best part about, at least I've always felt, like the best part of our work is, at least for me at this point in my career, is that in the old days, early days, I always worked with what we were called intangible products. Somebody had to die. Somebody had to get sick.
You didn't actually get to see it in fruition.
Somebody had to get sick, right, etc. Now, we're truly permitted to be, we get the privilege of being in the back seat and invited on the ride and on the journey.
Right, we get to see the plan in not only do we get to see the plan in action every day, we get to adjust the plan as we go. So you get daily gratification almost.
And we get to live vicariously through some of our clients' spending in retirement.
I would say not just the spending, which is fun when we get to see the Corvettes and things like that, but Dad, you've had clients long before Rob and I joined you that are still current clients, and being able to see them enjoy their retirement and do the things that they'd like to do and not feel like managing their wealth is their second job because they've delegated that.
Right.
Is really, it's great. That's why we love to see our clients in the office, love to have phone calls with them, because we get to experience retirement before we get there, which is always nice.
If only we could hop onto Medicare and experience some of those advantage plans.
Well, unfortunately, Robert, I will tell you that with age also generally comes aches and pains, so you really don't want those. But it's good work. It's noble work.
I think it's fun.
And it's a lot of fun, and we do appreciate all the folks that come in and visit with us, our listeners. You've help us build our practice over the years, and we continue to see folks literally every week that are wanting to retire. We're creating their game plans, and we say thank you.
Yes,
which is great. So we do say thank you. So our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the KTRS text line.
And we've got a texter on the line. Texter writes, I am turning 73 this year and have to take my first RMD.
Congratulations!
I really like all my underlying investments, and while some of them have declined, I feel that they will come back. My question is, how do I determine which to sell when executing a required minimum distribution? Great question.
I mean, my first suggestion would be if you love we don't know what the investments are that you love, which is great.
But he loves them, and that's always important.
Well, you got to love what you own. I would maybe suggest if some of those are potentially dividend paying or interest bearing, that you might switch your investment strategy, meaning instead of reinvesting dividends and interest, maybe you're having that go to cash. Most likely that's not going to generate the required minimum distribution in its entirety, but one, it will help you through the end of this year, and then it will also help you into the future because you'll have a full year of dividends and interest accumulating that you can then take as cash, so you're not having to sell as much of those investments. So that would be my first suggestion to kick things off.
And, honey, I think that's a very good step one. And then obviously step two would be, how has our mix changed because of the investment environment? This is maybe a great opportunity for us to rebalance your portfolio. And if we are, generally when we're rebalancing, what we're doing is we're generating cash through the sales. And since it's in a retirement account, we don't care because there's no taxation.
Right.
So, like you're saying, cash flow first, cash from rebalance second.
Mm-hmm.
That's easy. Or as Aaron was really alluding to, if you're using individual securities, my core question is, if you had cash today, would you own it? If the answer is no, well, guess what? There's a perfect...
That's the first thing to go.
Exactly. That's the first thing to go. Instead of waiting for it to come back, you really have to ask yourself, is this something an instrument that I really want to have as part of my portfolio today? Because you can always buy it back later tomorrow.
And we have Sue on the line with a Medicare question. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for taking my call. And I apologize, I'm not at home, so I don't have my paperwork in front of me. However, I'm getting ready for Medicare in October.
Great.
And I know there's one portion that there's a cost for, and that depends on your income.
Yes.
And in 2024, I got a distribution from one of my dad's accounts from him passing away. And so it looks like I make a lot of money, but it's only for that year.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any way to adjust that?
So unfortunately, you won't be able to adjust it for the up. So in 2024 is when you receive the distribution. So in 2026 is when you are going to, unfortunately, have to pay the additional tax of the inheritance from dad. But it'll just be for that single year. So there are some times where you'll have the opportunity to appeal because of a life-changing event. So are you still working?
I just retired.
Okay, so what my suggestion would be is you might not be able to mitigate the inheritance from dad, but I would submit, there's an appeal form, and if you want to hop on our website, jblfinancial.com, and hit the Contact Us button and just send an email that says, I need that form,
great.
I'll be happy to send the form over to you, because retirement is considered a life-changing event, so it should bring your income down on one side, which might help get you underneath that Medicare adjustment for your Medicare Part B premium.
Okay, because I had assumed what amount it was going to be, and then I read an article that said, no, it's not.
Right, yes. So you might get a little ding, but the good news is Medicare Part B has a 2-year look back on your income, but the 2-year look back happens every single year. So in 26, they'll look at 24. In 27, they will look at 25. So eventually and for most retirees, this is true, it will level out for you, but we'll get you that form if you send us an email and have it all taken, and hopefully you'll be able to get at least maybe this upcoming year taken care of.
Thanks so much. I appreciate your help.
Oh, our pleasure. Thanks for calling in.
You know, honey, I was just thinking as you were talking with her, is that we're making an assumption, and she didn't correct us or give us any further information, but we're assuming that distribution was a retirement plan distribution. If it had been like CDs that she inherited, well, that's not income.
Or life insurance.
Exactly, that's not income. So it must have been a retirement
IRA
plan.
Probably. Yeah, anything taxable, any capital gains. So there are a few things, like we were discussing with Sue, there are a few things that you are able to appeal to Medicare and say, this really isn't my income. Change of life events include loss of wages or adjustment of wages, so full retirement or partial retirement, because what you're telling Medicare is that although I was earning this amount, I will no longer earn this amount moving forward. Unfortunately, capital gains from the sale of businesses, the sale of securities, the inheritance that you then sell and unfortunately have a capital gain, or fortunately, but in this instance it will be considered unfortunate since you'll have another tax to deal with. The government says, well, sure, you don't have that income coming in the future, but you have the money. So you'll pay the tax, unfortunately.
And we're seeing that mostly where our clients are having the sale of a family farm, which they have a portion of, and that it's a large distribution because they have a large gain. So
that is absolutely correct. But if, like in Sue's case, maybe you can't mitigate that distribution, but if you're able to show the government that your income has dropped because of retirement, it might even out to the point where you are then either below the income-related Medicare adjustment or you've dropped one of the brackets, because luckily this is not an all-or-nothing proposition. How many brackets are there, Rob?
There are 5.
There are 5 brackets that you're going to progress through depending upon your taxable income. The other thing I would point out, just to be cautious of, is for many people that are holding municipal bonds in after-tax accounts, we know that that is not taxable in terms of the interest earned. However, it is taxable. I mean, it is recaptured in your Medicare calculation. So you want to be careful of that as well. And that's not something you can appeal because, again, you have the money for it. The government assumes you have the money for it. So a little complicated, but hopefully after a few years for most people in retirement, you won't have to keep resubmitting this form. It's just usually a 1 or 2 time event.
Very good. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line, which I know is filling up.
And our texter has a little bit of a follow-up on that RMD. Says, thank you so much for your answer on my RMD question. What is the deadline for having to take the RMD, and that deadline is December 31st of the end of this year. But because it's your first time being RMD eligible, you actually can push off that first one into April, but you have to take it by April 15th. But be aware, you will have to take 2 RMDs next year if you do that.
That's right. You have to take this year's before April, and then you got to take next year's at some point during the year, and you only get this one time to do the deferral.
Exactly. You can't. This is just a one-time opportunity.
All right. I think we should take our last break of the hour.
Let's do that. When we come back, we'll be here to answer your questions and calls at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Staples.
Hi, I hear Staples prints it all.
Oh, you bet. Posters, banners.
Can you print it all for Father's Day?
Oh, of course. Photo gifts like canvas prints, photo puzzles.
Can you print it all for graduation?
Sure can. Custom cards and invites.
Can you print a huge banner with the grad's picture?
Oh, definitely.
Even an embarrassing baby picture?
Oh, those are the best kind.
I know, right?
Print it all for dads and grads at Staples. And right now, get 40% off custom cards, invites, and photo gifts. N75 exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/print for details.
Great news from Appliance Discounters. They've teamed up with LG and now opening up their 6th location. Appliance Discounters factory outlet store will be offering out-of-the-box, slightly blemished, factory closeout, or one-of-a-kind brand-new LG appliances at drastically reduced prices. Some will be reduced as much as 60%. Appliance Discounters and LG teaming up. Now 6 locations. To find the one nearest you, theappliancediscounters.com.
Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Welcome back to the show. We're in our last 7 minutes or so to answer your questions and calls at 314-931-5877. I love being live.
It is great, and you know what I think is great, greater than being live, is it seems like some things that are on people's mind are on everyone's mind. It kind of happens in waves.
Right.
And so it's nice to be able to tap into that. And if you have something on your mind, most likely someone else is thinking about it too.
Yes. You can't be the first one to experience that question or comment or problem.
Right.
You know, it's curious because I know that, and really this even also, because we know that most of the things that we do come from coaching sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And up until this week,
mm-hmm.
every one of our clients I visited with were basically, I'm a little nervous, look into the tea leaves, tell me what you see.
Your crystal ball, is it cracked?
Exactly. And this week, there was none. Because what we saw is that I saw that, I want to think the dam is starting to break.
There's a little sigh of relief.
That's right. The deals are starting to happen. We don't know how many there will or what speed, but we saw the first one. We know that tax reform is going to occur.
It's on deck.
It should happen within the next 30 to 60 days, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
So some of that anxiety is going out of the system. We're knowing that there's, in terms of the wars that are going on in the world, that they're working on those things. So it's all good. I mean, when the temperature comes down, our phone volume goes up, which is also fun.
Well, I think that's a great point, and I think that speaks to not just what you feel, but a lot of times what people feel is a reflection of literally what's happening in the market, which is there was an anxiety in the market amongst business owners, amongst traders, that the path forward was unclear. But as things start to settle and we realize that, the end of the world comes once and it wasn't today, that like you said, Dad, either the dam's lifted or breaks, or there's a sigh of relief, and we can get back to what is important, which is earnings, financial numbers about our economy and the way things are moving forward. And I think that although there is still some unease there, I think there's a lot of positivity to be discussed, which we've talked about quite a bit. But I think something else that's important to chat about is we often talk about it makes sense to go chat with your financial advisor. We have conversations with our clients, sometimes mostly on a quarterly basis. So we're constantly at least attempting to see the people that we work with. We have what I like to call an open door policy, which is when you have a question, a concern, something new comes up, we want you to call and come and chat with us. But when you're having those meetings with your financial professional, maybe they have an agenda planned out, but maybe there are some questions that you should bring along with you to help. Maybe your anxiety doesn't come from the market. It's coming from your own personal goals, your own personal objectives, where you see your retirement going. Maybe some of these questions that we've come up with might help you alleviate those anxieties.
Yeah, so let's take a few minutes and identify some of those, shouldn't we?
Yep.
Great. So, the question I know that's overriding and we receive from our clients, and we're on the front of this always when we're talking to them, which is, am I on track when it comes to meeting my financial goals? Not only are my investments working the way that I would, but from an income and expense point of view, am I staying in line? Will the next expense put me over? Will it tip the apple cart over?
Right.
Et cetera. I mean, where am I at? Am I where I should be? And having the peace of mind of where you are is extremely important, because I think what it does is that when you can bring the temperature down, it helps you, put you in a position, I think, where you can make better decisions about really anything in your life. Right?
Absolutely.
The second question that we typically folks are asking is, am I prepared to handle unexpected events?
So important.
Because we know life happens.
Yes.
And you can have and we like to think we have a beautifully designed plan for our clients. Their fault in terms of they're making withdrawals to fill the gap to meet their income needs. We put aside money for planned events, capital consumption. But stuff happens, whether it's health-wise, whether it's something to do with the children, whether it happens to be with accountable relatives. I mean, whatever it might be, if there are additional needs, capital needs that I have, or even maybe an ongoing income need, can I handle this?
And, there doesn't always have to be a catastrophe or something to the negative. It could be something very positive. Maybe you've had a new addition to the family that you weren't expecting.
Absolutely. And, when we're in volatile markets, which truthfully we're always in a volatile market, okay, investment decisions that are driven by emotions are rarely beneficial. Staying on track, rebalancing your portfolio, etc., those mechanical things that we do take out a lot of, we think, the emotions and the volatility in terms of how things work.
Completely agree with that.
Which is a very important question. And obviously a third question, we won't go into this in detail because we're running out of time, is my investment strategy in line with my long-term goals in the economy? And I hope it is, and if it's not, this is a great time to rebalance your portfolio. Visit with your advisor and visit with us next week here on the Big 550 KTRS.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Be listening next week at 9 for more